and I was going to be the roadie because I had a van. And I told them, I went to a rehearsal, and I mentioned that I'd got a saxophone in my van, and they said, oh, well, bring it in, have a play on it. So I brought my saxophone in and made all these really weird... They said, great, you're in the band. So we went and did a gig. We went out as Group X, and we gate crashed some other band's gig in the All Saints Hall in Notting Hill Gate, and John Peel was there, and he really loved it. We played this song which we called Sunshine Special, which was a lick from a John Coltrane song, actually, but it was the tune that the Byrds used on their 8 Miles High. So it was like ba 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 ba, something like that, really. Like that, and so John Peel was really enthusiastic about the band, and he told the organisers of the event, sign them up. So they signed us up. They got us a record deal very quickly. We made an album in the studio. They gave us a really shitty deal, but a shitty deal's better than no deal. So so we went with it, and then my friend Robert Calvert, who was a total lunatic who I used to hang around with in Margate, we all used to take drugs together and get completely out of our heads, and he was manic depressive, and he would when he was manic he wouldn't stop talking. He would go and I'd be going, oh Bob, yeah Bob, yeah okay Bob, anything you say Bob. He'd be foaming at the mouth, and then he'd fall over and get depressed. Oh no, before that he'd actually put on all his army gear. He had all this army costume and a big rucksack full of fucking bricks or something, and he used to go for a 20-mile route march, and he'd walk himself into the loony bin. So then he'd be depressed. He'd have a nervous breakdown. No, when he was manic, he'd have the nervous breakdown, and then he'd get really depressed and have to stay in bed for a while. But he's not alone. Michael Moorcock had the same problem. Barney Bubbles had the same problem. I think lots of very creative people have that problem, and you know, I sympathise with them, and I love them, and I'd like to give them all a big hand. So there I was in this band, and I was with Dave Brock and Mick Slater and Terry Hollis and John Harrison, who unfortunately died the other day, I'm told. So let's hear a big cheer for John Harrison. In a new psychedelic club called the Beautiful Balloon with the Pretty Things, and he was our producer. He was a very nice guy, and he thought we were completely bonkers. While he was sort of learning about the band, we took him to a couple of gigs, and I had this van. It was his old Ford Thames van, which we crammed everybody into with all the equipment. And we took him to this gig at Guildford University because he wanted to hear what we were doing. And when we were there, we did the gig, and then there was a bit of a mix-up over the money, and they wouldn't pay us properly. So I very sort of foolishly backed the van through the plate glass window of the front door, and we drove off. And then we were driving down the street in London, and these people were really drunk in the road, and they sort of at a zebra crossing, they all suddenly jumped out onto the road. I was doing about 25 miles an hour. I had to swerve, and I hit this Belisha beacon and bent it over, and it turned the van over. So we were all in the van, we all climbed out, and we sort of pushed the van back up on its wheels and drove off. I think Dick Taylor had a very sort of distorted impression of us. And the problem was as well that we're all out of our heads on LSD all the time, you know. So it was, we all had a distorted impression of what we were doing. So then we went in the studio, did the album, which we just recorded live. We did 2 versions of it. We set all the equipment up and just played the whole thing live through, and then we just kept the best bits of the best bits. and that was the album. So then my friend Robert Calvert got involved with the band when we were doing our second album, which was In Search of Space, and a good album. I thought it was a very good album. And my friend, I met Barney Bubbles, who was the art director of Friends magazine, and we sort of really hit it off, because he said, where do you live then? I said, anywhere. He said, oh, you can come and sleep in my cupboard. I said, oh, thanks, Barney. So I went and slept in his cupboard. And we sort of established a great friendship. And then I said, I'm doing this album with this band, Hawkwind. He said, Hawkwind? Yeah, he said, that's an interesting name. I said, yeah, and we're doing a gig tonight in the Bushy Park School for Children of American Service People in Europe. And he said, oh, can I come? I said, yeah, sure. And he said, oh, can I bring my mate? I said, who's that then? He said, oh, it's this geezer, his name's Michael Moorcock. And I said, yeah, by all means. So we went to the gig, and we all took loads of LSD, and Barney thought the whole place was on fire. He thought it was fantastic. And as a result of that, he was just like sold on the band completely. Mike Moorcock thought the band was just what his characters in his books listened to, so he had Jerry Cornelius listening to Hawkwind on his cassette machine as he travelled through time. And then Robert Calvert got involved in the band because he introduced me to Barney, actually, because he got a job on Friends magazine writing science fiction editorial, and Mike Moorcock was working with him, and they became big buddies, and until Robert Calvert nicked Mike Moorcock's wife. And they had a big fight at the Rainbow Theatre. Somebody was just talking to me about that earlier, which was one of the fantastic gigs that we did, where Robert and I played Silver Machine. No, we played Master of the Universe. Bob had this little wonky Wasp synthesizer, and I was playing my saxophone, and we sort of cobbled this song together, which was very exciting actually. We got everybody singing and playing along like you were just now, and it was great. And so Robert became involved with the band, and we were getting this album together called Barney sort of had sort of a very profound influence on us. He said, oh, you should call this album X in Search of Space. I said, should we? He said, yeah, go on. I said, oh, all right. And at this time, Robert Calvert was involved with us, and he and Barney put together the space log of this crashed spaceship that had become two-dimensional on becoming in contact with Earth's atmosphere. And In Search of Space was this two-dimensional record of the spaceship and all the contents of the people that were in the spaceship and all their thoughts and all their consciousnesses. And it was a fantastic album. And Dave Anderson said, "Oh, I've got this riff. It goes like this." Da 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 da. Oh, you are the center of this universe. Yeah, you ought to be clapping. Where's my rhythm section? You are the center of this universe. The wind of time is blowing through you, and it's all moving relative to me. It's all a figment of my mind, in a world that I've designed. It's charged with cosmic energy. That's a world gone mad. What is it mean? You are the creator of this universe. and all that is was meant to be, so that we might learn to see the foolishness that lives in us. Come on, join in.